Hello, hello, hello. This is your boy Brandon Correia, aka EF of Entertainment, and we are back with another review. And the review we got today is Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, episode 6, and a action-packed and exciting episode we got today. So if you're interested in content like this, Rings of Power reviews, House of the Dragon reviews, Andor reviews, She-Hulk reviews, trailer reactions, entertainment news updates, sports talks, music talks, specifically hip-hop talks. If you'd be interested in content like that, subscribe to the Brandon Correia Network. You will not regret it. Now let's get into Rings of Power episode 6. Now, like I mentioned, this was a very exciting and action-packed episode. It started off with a very exciting and pretty amazing action sequence between Arondir and the orcs, because we see the orcs pulling up on the village people with Bronwyn, Theo, and Arondir. And we see that the village, that the people that were gathered there ended up leaving, and they basically set it up so that a lot of the orcs that got gathered there, Arondir kind of went to work shooting man, ended up shooting like the tower down, like this huge tower that ended up collapsing on top of a lot of them. And we see that the townspeople are kind of far away in a further off village. They see that happen. They're cheering. And then we see Arondir meet up with them later on. Now they know that more forces are coming, so they actually plan for this, and we see them start to get ready, Home Alone fashion, where they're setting up traps and booby traps and making weapons and preparing strongholds, things of that nature, so that they're ready for this next wave. And as this is going on, we see a brief shot of Galadriel and the forces of Numenor heading towards land. There's a nice moment where Galadriel meets Isildur and they have a conversation, a good introduction between two like characters that are going to be main characters going forward. And then it jumps right back to the townspeople, and it's mainly focused on them. The forces, the rest of the orcs ran up on them. They kind of trapped them. They set off their booby traps, and they end up surviving the night. There's a nice fight between Arondir and this big giant orc, which he's like this close to dying, and we see Bronwyn actually save him. And when daylight starts to come, we actually see that as the townspeople are kind of noticing everything, they're kind of clearing up stuff, they notice that a lot of the individuals are some of their own townspeople that left to go fight with the orcs. They were just masked up. So as they're thinking everything's all fine and dandy, we actually start to hear more the rest of the actual forces, because a lot of the forces that were there were masked up, and there were just some of the townspeople that were with them before. So as the remaining real forces start to come, we see a lot of them start to get clipped by arrows, clipped off the roof. One of the old mans that was holding it down gets clipped, ends up passing away. We see Bronwyn actually get clipped in the shoulder. As they go into the stronghold, they have to remove the arrow, cauterize her to stop the bleeding. They end up getting ran up on and murked because they thought the main forces and all their booby traps were set for the remaining forces, but it was actually their half of the townspeople that left. So we see Oren, which we find out is like the father of like the orcs. He runs up on the stronghold. Arondir's kind of held up, and he's like, where's the sword? Because he's obviously looking for the sword that Theo had, that Arondir ended up hiding that episode. And he didn't want to tell him, and as he's not telling him, he like the orcs that are obviously working for him are just stabbing off people, and they're about to kill Bronwyn, and Theo obviously couldn't take it, and he just somehow knew where it is. I guess like the sword's like calling out to him, so he somehow was able to know where it is. So he took it out, gave it right to Oren, and as they were about to leave, we see the Numenorian forces on horseback come over the hill, and there was a nice big battle in this, not a big battle, but a solid battle in this village. We see Galadriel going to work, her skills coming out. We see Helbrand going to work, his skills coming out. We see Elendil in the fight. We see Isildur actually get in briefly, not too much, but he does briefly enter the fight. His friend actually puts in way more work. We see his other friend, the blonde one, kind of get overwhelmed, and he's like, honestly, like this probably isn't for me. But the one other friend with the curls, that guy was putting in work. He seems like he's more ready than Isildur. But as this fight's going on, we see that Oren, because he got the sword, he ends up riding off on horseback. So we see Galadriel go up to Arondir, and he's like, where's their commander? And he points to Oren. He's like, don't let him get away with that item. Galadriel gets on her horse. Nice horse chase scene. Helbrand sees that, grabs a spear, chases after them. As they're going, we see Helbrand kind of maybe take a different direction and cut them off, and actually knocks Oren off of his horse. And he was like this close to killing him, and we find out that he's actually familiar with this guy and he knows Oren. And obviously we're probably going to find out more in the future, or maybe not, because at the end of the episode, Galadriel actually goes to him and is like, whatever he did to you, just free it of yourself. And he was like, I never thought I would be able to until today. So maybe we won't touch on it again because it seems like he freed himself from that burden. But clearly Oren in the past did something, killed his wife, child, whatever, whole village, whatever the case may be. Clearly he did something bad to him because he was this close to killing him, and Galadriel stopped him. So they captured him, they get the sword, which they think, and I'll get into later on, they think they have the sword, the item that Arondir told Galadriel not to let him get away with. As they're back in the village celebrating, beers out, food's out, the rest of the remaining orcs that are alive are chained up. Oren's in like a barn chained up, and we see a conversation between him and Galadriel, and Galadriel's like, you guys are the elves that went dark, Morgoth's like children, and basically calling out like his whole like backstory and where he came from, how he spawned from Morgoth, and his connection to Sauron and all that stuff. So they basically had a conversation getting more into those aspects, and we see that Oren admits to Galadriel that he killed Sauron, that he chopped him in half, and Galadriel was like, I don't believe you. And as this is happening, because she's getting frustrated with his responses, she's like this close to killing him, and Hellbrand actually stops her. So they have a nice moment where, again, and this is where I was talking about, she was like, free yourself of this. They have a nice moment where they're there for each other and supporting of each other, and they're helping each other kind of get through this moment and this darkness in their lives. So it was just a nice moment between the two of them. As they're celebrating and as they continue to celebrate, they think everything's good. It cuts to the old man that was talking to Theo about the sword that we see earlier on, that he had familiarized himself with the sword. He used it a couple times. He actually had it, and he was back at the village where that statue carving of like Sauron, the sword, was in the wall, and we see him activate the sword, and the sword goes into like full form, and he ends up putting the sword into like this hole, turning the key. It breaks this whole dam, and because of all the holes that the orcs dug underwater, which this was their plan, all the water from this huge dam went underwater and basically poured into the volcano that was far off in the Southlands, which ends up turning into Mount Doom. The volcano erupts, and this shot honestly was amazing. Again, and I didn't even mention it so far, but this show is amazingly shot. It's beautiful. We see that the money that they spent on the show, we see it right in front of us visually. Like, it looks gorgeous. But the shot where it was like the far shot of the volcano like erupting, man, that looked absolutely gorgeous. But we see this thing erupt. Fireballs are being thrown. People are literally getting, the village is mad far away. People are just getting hit. And it literally ends with this lava cloud smoke engulfing the entire village. And like Galadriel basically just stands there and accepts it. And it's crazy because there's another shot where it's kind of above, and we see the smoke just taking over and just killing all the life on the land. Like it was like there was some amazing shots in the entire episode, like obviously during the battle, but once the volcano erupted, like that was some visually amazing stuff. And as this is happening, like the water, before this erupts and the water's heading towards the volcano, we see Oren actually lie on the ground to listen to the water flowing in towards the volcano. Obviously, like him kind of smiling to himself that, you know what I mean, the plan worked. Like, I love it when a plan comes together. Like, he's like, I don't even care that I got captured. This is popping off. So it was crazy. And like, I'm interested to see, and it's funny because they literally had a moment where they felt all optimistic because not only they won the battle, but they saw Hellbrand, and Hellbrand was revealed to them as the king that was promised. And they had a nice moment. They were feeling hopeful because not only did they win, but they finally found a king to lead them. They were waiting for this for so long. And then the volcano erupts, and an entire cloud smoke just boom engulfs the entire village and the entire lands that they were about to be, you know what I mean, trying to be giddy on. So it was crazy because I'm interested to see who survives that. And again, like it might have just been like extra cloud smoke by the time it got to them, so they might just be covered in ash and stuff. But I'm wondering if it was damaging, like if the smoke cloud that was coming to them was damaging, and there's a lot of people, which I'm sure probably are gonna die. Like there was women and children in there, right? You know what I mean? And now Galadriel has a bit of a power up, but all those other people don't. So I'm interested to see who is coming out in next episode, because that was crazy with the battle ending. Like, I did see that there was time left in the episode, and I was like, oh, maybe they're just gonna wrap up stuff. Lo and behold, no, they still had one big thing to end the episode, and it was a fucking volcano erupting. Like it was something major. Like I had no clue that they were gonna, I did hear whispers that there was gonna be a point where this might happen, like Mount Doom might erupt and it might come to be. But I didn't think that it was just gonna be at the end of this episode after the battle happened, it kind of calmed down and then boom, volcano erupting just in your face. So honestly, that was crazy. That shit was crazy. And that episode was a really good episode, not just because of the battle, but because all the moving parts in the episodes in the series so far have finally kind of come together, and it's kind of one direction for the remainder of the series. So I'm excited for the rest of the episodes, and this episode was action-packed and exciting. So I enjoyed this episode, and I'm excited for the next ones. That is it for my Rings of Power episode 6 review. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. If you think you'd be interested in content like this, Rings of Power review, House of the Dragon reviews, Andor reviews, trailer reactions, entertainment news updates, subscribe to the Brandon Correia Network. You will not regret it. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode, which episode so far has been your favorite, and where you, now that Mount Doom is erupted, where you think the rest of the series is going to go, and who you think even survived of the main characters survived into the next episode. So let me know in the comments. I appreciate you for watching. Catch you next time.